Welcome, everyone, to RB1 Colon Fantasy Football Podcast, part of the Fake Teams Podcast channel. I am your humble host, Pete Rogers, and I am joined today by all of the guys. We have resident old man Clark Barnes, the working girl Jordan Smith, and ginger woodsman Nick Bodiford. Guys, how we doing today?
Doing great, Pete.
Good, Pete. How you doing?
I am well. Jordan, I can only address this to you because you're the only person who I can 100% confirm has watched it. But did you cry this weekend at the end of WandaVision? Jordan is here, but 1 billion% frozen. Well, my excellent opening was thwarted by the internet. So maybe Jordan will be able to log in later in the show. So I tried to open with, some non-football talk, and the gods have spoken, and I guess we're just going straight into football.
I paid him off.
Yeah. Nick was like, enough with this, these lengthy intros. Fuck that noise. I want to talk football right away. And of course, there is breaking football news. I mean, we have some news to get to. All right, so breaking news that's dropped right before we hit record on the show. Dak Prescott signed a 4-year, $160 million, up to $164 million deal with the Dallas Cowboys. No trade clause, no tag provision, guaranteed $126 million. This is reported by Ian Rappaport. Buttload of money for a man that we all knew the Cowboys were going to franchise tag, have to pay through the nose for. But at the very least, we are very happy to see this deal get done. Dak stay in Dallas and stay in this offense, which has so much fantasy potential with Dak under center. And now we know for certain, Nick, things are going to be all systems go in Dallas.
To your point, something that I thought was really interesting with the no tag provision. So they are going to tag him officially, and then his long-term contract kicks in. And I'm totally rusty on the new CBA that was agreed to, but is it correct that you can't tag a player more than once on the franchise tag? There seemed to be something about the fact that they're going to franchise him then means that they can't do it to him again. And I don't know exactly how that works, but yeah, so he's going to get franchised, but then also the long-term deal kicks in. It's like $124 million in guaranteed money, which, I mean, that is awesome. And I hope it shuts up Jerry Jones and anybody else who was wondering if he was, a top 10 quarterback who can play like a top 5-1 given the scheme. It'll be a fantasy gold mine next year.
Yeah. Well, good on Jerry for finding the money after selling gas at a higher value to all of Texas in order to make some money back. Now you can finally sign Dak to a big deal. So good for you.
I know
Jerry.
it will likely be months before we actually figure out what the contract says, but is the no tag clause meaning when he comes up for his next contract, he will not be able to be franchise tagged?
Yeah, that's my understanding.
That is, I feel like that is huge for a position where you have a legit shot at getting 3, 4, 5 contracts. That's a pretty big deal if that's how that works out. After 5 years, so he'll be 31. 32.
That's still in your prime. Like that's
for
still
quarterback
prime.
that's fine.
Yeah, totally.
He could sign 2 more after that, no
Oh
problem.
my God, yeah. Has that been done before? Is this something relatively new? This no tag. I know you were talking about the new CBA, maybe introducing it, because it does seem like this is like Clark's saying. I mean, this does seem like a really big deal and a precedent setter.
I mean, wasn't that what Tom Brady did like 3 years ago, and that's why he could go to free agency?
That's why he could maybe Tom Brady leading the charge.
I don't know. We'll have to have someone more motivated and smarter than me look into that and get back to this.
Yeah. Well, as Jordan says, and as many people in the NFL Twitter sphere say, the cap is just a complete fabrication. So who really cares?
Yeah, he's getting a ton of money per year, a ton of money overall, just guaranteed. Like he's getting a boatload of cash. Like they're backing up the Brinks truck right now to his front step, and they're just getting it right away for him to sign on. He's getting $40 million per year right now, which is $5 million under Pat Mahomes. So he's not exactly getting like he didn't reset the market like Mahomes did, but he's like a mil above Deshaun Watson, and the franchise tag would have locked him in for like 37.5 million, I think. And the Cowboys did this to themselves, honestly. Like, they waited so long to give Dak Prescott a contract that they were like, now they had to pay him probably $4 to $5 million more per year annually than they would have if they would have signed him like 2 years ago to an extension. So I'm glad to see that Dak Prescott just didn't blink and the Cowboys blinked instead. Go get that cash, Dak.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Clark.
For fantasy, this is extremely exciting. One of potentially the best offenses in football that we were kind of worried about going into the offseason is, as much as anything can be in the NFL, settled and solidified. So fire up CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper. Those Ezekiel Elliott shares are looking stronger. Even Tony Pollard probably going to get some run. So the Cowboys are back to exceptionally interesting for fantasy.
Totally. 100%. Right off the dome, no thinking. What do you guys right now? Are you feeling Dak Prescott are you drafting him as a top 5 or a top 10 fantasy quarterback in 2021?
5.
Yeah, I would put him at top 5 or 4.
Sorry. I'm slow. So I'm putting Mahomes in front of him.
Don't think. 5 or 10.
7.
That's not
so top 10.
Top 10. There you go. I agree with the top 5. I tweeted out a poll on fake teams, and so far top 10 has been the overwhelming favorite, which people are sleeping on Dak. Don't sleep on Dak.
Is he interesting enough for you to spend real draft capital on in a 1 QB league? So like before round 5, are you going to pick Dak Prescott?
Maybe. I don't know. His rushing floor is saucy, but it's whether or not that ankle in a 2 QB league, like I'm paying for Dak.
If it's some like high stakes thing and you're trying to build a team stack where you're like hoarding the Cowboys points and you have like Amari Cooper in the second and CeeDee Lamb in the third, and then you go Dak for it. Yeah, I could see that kind of a thing happening. I mean, maybe I would take him in the 5th, but probably not. I mean, too many good.
I mean, this podcast is like we live and die by the draft quarterbacks late, so it's hard. It like makes me physically ill to think about drafting a QB early.
Clark does not,
except for Clark Burns.
I will take opportunity as it presents itself.
This is true. Clark Burns, and that's why he had all the Travis Kelce shares this year, going above and beyond. Speaking of the tight end position, Clark, your favorite tight end in the entire NFL got released this last week. The Vikings parted ways with Kyle Rudolph, so he's now a free agent. And some interest has arisen, it seems. The reports are saying that Kyle Rudolph is interested in signing with the Patriots. As a Patriots fan, I, of course, endorse this because, good Lord, New England needs pass catchers, particularly in the red zone. Clark, what do you think for your favorite player in the NFL?
Kyle Rudolph's fine. He'll be a good middling, 30th best player on your team addition, especially to a team like the Patriots, who's shown they I was looking at the draft order and prep for the show. They went 7-9. It feels like they had a horribly disastrous season. They went 7-9. Kyle Rudolph is fine. He was really productive as a fantasy player for a couple of years because of the system, but he is kind of a plus receiving tight end who blocks well. I'm no longer interested in him in any way in fantasy.
Wow. What a moment.
Beat it out of me.
What a moment. Wow. This is huge for the show. Clark Barnes renouncing his love for Kyle Rudolph.
I feel bad. I don't even give a shit
This is all
about Kyle Rudolph. It's just like, no, he's not that good anymore. He's old. Irv Smith is cooler. Anyway, yeah. He's to what you said about if he goes to the Pats, that could be interesting, but I can't imagine having him inside of like the top 20 at the position at this point.
You would never draft him, but he would be a guy who I could keep eyes on depending on his landing spot, particularly if New England, I feel like what his role right now is like go be 6'6" in the red zone. And that can get you 5+ touchdowns.
So potential breaking news, Rappaport tweeting out The Dolphins traded for he's citing multiple. He's saying sources, so it's not confirmed yet. But sources: the Dolphins traded for Titans first-round offensive tackle Isaiah Wilson with a swap of picks, completing the deal. Fresh start for Wilson, who Tennessee had been shopping this offseason with. Because I mean he was a first-rounder last year, correct? Wilson, Isaiah Wilson.
Yeah,
I guess he just kind of had
he had a lot of off-field issues.
Was it? I don't know if it was off field. You maybe you should educate us on that, Pete. I thought he was just kind of like the coaching staff got frustrated with him for his attitude or what. Players.
I guess I consider that off-field issues, but maybe that's on-field issues. But yes, no, he definitely fell out of favor quickly with the coaching staff. So I didn't know they were looking to shop him. So Miami getting some new offensive linemen for their eventual starting quarterback Deshaun Watson. Interesting.
I'm pretty sure he picks. I imagine the Tennessee going from 22 to 18.
I have no idea if there's first
swapping first.
Are they swapping first? I think it's just talking about first rounds. Go ahead, Jordan. What were you saying?
I hope it's not swapping first. I'm not sure Isaiah Wilson is worth all of that given his issues. I think the most recent issue with Isaiah Wilson, like the off-field stuff, was I'm pretty sure he was at like a college party during COVID quarantine time, and did he jump off a balcony or something like that? It was something like really weird, and he did not play like a snap for the Titans last year. And they don't know whether or not he's going to play. I think he tweeted not too long ago that he was like done being a Titan or what have you, and they're just like, all right, man, like we don't really know what to do with you. I hope he finds what he needs in Miami as a reclamation project there.
Yeah. Since they had Tennessee kind of by the balls with the fact that Tennessee let the world know they wanted to trade him, I cannot imagine that they got a first round pick for him, because they had to have walked up and just said, hey, it's obviously he's a big enough problem for you guys. Right. We'll give you something for him. But yeah, I mean, if it's a first, then Vrabel swindled them magically.
That's a magic. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. I was going to say magic too, Nick. Wow. Look at us.
Well,
look at us.
Take out our plans.
Look at us. We did it.
As an aside, it's incredible how many NFL related incidents involve players who are intoxicated with balconies in public settings.
Stay indoors, people. Stay indoors.
If you haven't been intoxicated and jumped off a balcony, well, then I don't know if we're going to be friends.
I didn't say I haven't done that. It's just surprising how many grown adult NFL players who end up and they're like, oh, shit, we got to flee. Let's go upstairs and then out the window off the balcony.
Man, when you're a hyper athlete, you can get away with that kind of shit. You can jump from a second story window and survive. Meanwhile, me and my old ass knees would just crumble. Finally in the news, Miles Simmons of Pro Football Talk is reporting that the Cardinals head coach Kliff Kingsbury has yet again voiced his confidence that Chase Edmonds can be the team's lead back. Kenyon Drake is a free agent. We've heard this before. Clark is miming exactly what this is, which is just coach speech and more fodder. But it does add to kind of the growing theme that we have talked about in the past, which is the fact that like Chase Edmonds is going to have a sizable role, it seems, in the Cardinals offense, regardless what they do at their running back position, and might even be their running back to start. And so obviously that garners some fantasy notoriety for him.
There are a lot of interesting running backs in the draft, not just, first round guys. There's a lot of day 2, day 3 guys that I think are going to be super interesting, and a lot of guys who played in systems like the Cardinals want to run. Someone that we're going to talk about. Wow, I'll save it. Yeah, okay. The Cardinals, I would be very surprised if they don't spend a second, third, fourth round pick on a running back, even though Chase Edmonds is okay. And I really want to see Benjamin play.
The Cardinals would probably be smart just to let Kenyon Drake go if they have like a Chase Edmonds type player already there and ready. Like the bigger issue for them is shoring up their offensive line, but kind of like Bruce Arians, I don't trust a damn thing that the Cardinals say that they're going to do. So do with that what you will.
Beautiful. Well, there's the NFL news for you. We are going to talk some draft landing spots, but before we do that, we're going to take a quick ad break. All right, we are back. And with it being March and the NFL draft fast approaching, we decided it's time to start giving y'all some draft talk. But instead of talking rookie players quite yet, because I will open up the onion curtain and say that I have not done my deep dives into this rookie class quite yet, or know extensively what. We're going to talk rookie landing spots, positions on teams that would have us excited no matter who is the player actually drafted. Now, we saw this last year with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who was not the consensus lead back in the draft or top back in the draft, but by being drafted with the Chiefs, he enticed fantasy heads to the point where it rocketed his stock and he became, the top rookie running back in fantasy. So we each have a positional group from a team that we're really excited about drafting a rookie in fantasy, regardless of who the rookie actually is. Kind of confusing, but I think my CEH example more than perfectly explained it. So no excuses for you, dear listeners. Jordan, why don't you start us off? What is a team, position group, whatever that you would be excited about, regardless of who the rookie actually is in terms of landing spots?
Well, I guess I kind of went a little bit not opposite, but I actually labeled down a specific player just because I think the fit actually matters here. But I guess I'll just say put a number 2 wide receivers on the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers probably have a few other holes that they can address in the draft, but if they add a receiver, I said specifically Rashad Bateman, who can be a inside and outside receiver threat for them and who they can viably get at 13, I think is where they're drafting specifically. And there's just going to be targets there if Hunter Henry walks, and Keenan Allen is obviously the number one. He's going to be snagging well over 115 balls every year, but they need a number 2 as we've kind of waited for Mike Williams to show up and fit that role. He's been a fine deep ball player, but he occasionally gets injured, and he hasn't had the boom year that he had after he finished wide receiver 21 in his sophomore year, because the following years after that, he finished wide receiver 37 and wide receiver 42. So getting Justin Herbert, rather, another just elite route running weapon like Rashad Bateman or like one of these other stud wide receivers in the draft could do wonders for the Chargers offense.
Yeah, especially if Hunter Henry leaves in free agency. And I think they seem like a situation that's very similar in my mind to like the Vikings last year, where you had Adam Thielen, who I feel like is comparable to Keenan Allen, and then looking for that number 2 guy. Obviously, the Vikings traded Stephon Diggs, but then got Justin Jefferson, who stepped in immediately and was wildly productive. And I think you're right, Jordan, where it's not that, I think it's not the fact that like the Chargers offense can't support 2 wide receivers fantasy wise. I think it's that Mike Williams hasn't proven to be good enough to be a reliable number 2 guy in terms of fantasy. And so if there is a hyper talented, which this class seems to have a lot of in terms of receivers, but a receiver going to the Chargers who can really rise to that occasion and be that number 2 guy, there's a lot of fantasy potential there.
I really like the pick, even if it's, early second, because they are at 13. You're right. So even if it's with their second round pick, there's going to be a lot of guys available. Wide receiver cores are 3 wide receivers now. So there's just, you're probably going to play 4 or 5 people at that position, but stacking 3 deep is just a good plan for the NFL. Justin Herbert just absolutely killed it last year. And it wasn't a rookie coming in and playing for 4 games and looking great. He did not go through the rookie slump. He took a team that was not going to be very good with a head coach that was miraculously uncreative and just absolutely balled out. So play into the strength. They already have a lot of guys on defense who just, can't stay healthy. They're already should be pretty good on that side of the ball. And I think they brought in the defensive coordinator from the Rams last year who finally did the smart things, like have Aaron Donald go against your least talented offensive lineman and let Jalen Ramsey just do what he wants. So those are the kind of ideas that with the Chargers personnel can get you pretty far on defense. So I love doubling down on, whether they got lucky or what with Herbert, get him some more weapons.
Yeah, I think this is a smart call. Mike Williams, Jalen Guyton, and Tyron Johnson are all free agents after this season. And I really liked what I saw out of Guyton as kind of like maybe the long-term Mike Williams replacement, because I think Williams will go for a decent amount on the free agent market, in which case, they re-sign Guyton as the downfield guy, and then they need some big number two to kind of honestly like play like an X with Keenan Allen kind of operating as like the number one receiver, but a slot guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think investing high at the position this year would be a really smart move.
Clark, what do you got?
So we're spoiled for choice with this one. And as much as I hate the quarterback on this team, the Pittsburgh Steelers finished 32nd in running back points scored. And that was partially because Ben Roethlisberger was kind of given the reins to the offense and wanted to throw the ball 800 times, but partially because James Conner got hurt and Benny Snell's not good. And so I would love to, I know we're not supposed to pick a player, but like Jordan, I decided to do it. Anyway, North Carolina running back, Michael Carter. So a little slight, 5'8", but likely to last until day 2, day 3. An extremely polished route runner. So if Roethlisberger still wants to throw the ball 900 times, you can get a guy who not only can catch, but knows how to set himself up in zones and how to make, running backs show that they're really good in college when they can press the line and make the linebacker take that false step and then cut. And he does that all the time, not only running, but also as a wide receiver. So obviously I'm really excited about him just as a player anyway, but going to somewhere like Pittsburgh, I think playing alongside some plodding guy who I'm sure Mike Tomlin is going to like more would be fantastic.
Yeah, I can't speak to the player. I think that they are definitely
Nick and I clearly are way behind the 8 ball in our draft research. You guys are dropping names. You guys are dropping game tape. Wow, I'm impressed.
Yeah, I got to get my SIS rookie handbook delivered here pretty soon. There's definitely a hole at the position. I don't think that Anthony McFarland Jr. is the long-term answer. And as you said, Clark, Benny Snell is not really very good. And even if he is good at like the 2-down north-south thing, anyway, yeah, they could use a fresh body in there. I don't know how high of a pick I would endorse using for a running back, but there is definitely fantasy production to be had there if Mike Tomlin sticks with his ways of utilizing a bell cow in a 3-down role.
Yeah, especially a guy who can be a pass catcher, because I feel like that's an aspect of this offense that's really been lacking, is a reliable receiver out of the backfield. And it's an option that would really help elongate Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, he signed, I think, like a 1-year or maybe a 2-year deal with the Steelers. And so elongate as much as you can, but making him the best quarterback he can be in 2021 and giving him options in the intermediate to short passing game, as opposed to like having to chuck the ball downfield to Deontay Johnson in triple coverage and hope that he catches it, despite the fact that he drops a lot of balls. So I think having a pass catcher back there is, we've seen that with Le'Veon Bell. That was when the Steelers offense was kind of at its best with Antonio Brown and a young Juju. So I like that option a lot, is to get a running back, particularly a guy who can pass catch into Pittsburgh. I also think that that's going to be a requirement, because Pittsburgh's offensive line, I feel like they had 2 guys retire on it. And so it might be a little shaky to start, but having a reliable pass catcher out of the backfield would certainly help mitigate, and just a reliable run game would help mitigate some of that in terms of pass pro.
Yeah, the Pittsburgh offensive line played pretty poorly last year, and that was before the retiring started happening. I think getting them a running back, especially a running back like Clark mentioned, Michael Carter, who is a little bit more lightning than thunder. He's more of an agile, dynamic runner rather than like a James Conner, who is going to look for contact and, fall forward for 3 to 4 yards on every attempt. To your point, Pete, too, I would say he is a little bit more like Le'Veon Bell, somebody who's going to make some more decisive cuts, is a little bit more smooth as a runner, and can be very effective in the passing game, which, yeah, like you said, would help alleviate the pass blocking and the run blocking holes that are definitely going to be there for Pittsburgh this year.
Well, I'll stay at the running back position because for me, it's the running back position for the Jets I think is going to be super exciting in terms of my view for fantasy football. First off, there's literally no one on the roster. I mean, you have Frank Gore is there, and outside of that, there's no one of note. But the bigger thing is that Mike LaFleur, the offensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers, is now the offensive coordinator for the New York Jets. He's going to bring that Kyle Shanahan offense to a slightly above offensive line per Football Outsiders adjusted line yard. So you're already getting an offensive line there that had a good amount of running success last year with really no ground game and under Adam Gase. I think there's going to be a lot of pub about like what the Jets are going to do at quarterback. And I've seen a lot of mocks, obviously with a high first overall or first round pick. A lot of mocks are saying either they're going to trade Darnold and go quarterback or get like a wide receiver weapon for him atop the draft, which is all great. Like, I mean, but we've talked about this passing game. I don't think this passing game in New York needs all that much help. But if they invest a second or a third in a running back or even a fourth, like if they invest any kind of draft capital in a running back, I would be really excited to snag that guy because I think that there's obviously a lot of work to be done in that. And there's a big hole for a running back to step into already behind an offensive line that was pretty good last year in an offense that we know can have or an offensive system that can have a lot of success running the football.
Yeah, I think that might be the best one that we've had, and probably will have on this show. That scheme's going to feature the running back heavily, as you said, with the two guys that they've got there with Robert Saleh and what's the name? The OC. Yeah, they're going to go really, really hard as a dynamic running game. Hopefully, they do some pass first and play action and all that too. But if someone lands there and they really win the job, I mean, that's 300 touches right there.
I have Ty Johnson on my dynasty roster. I'm trying to move him for some draft capital right now. So if we could quiet down on
Sorry. Ty Johnson is going to be incredible for the Jets in 2021. Anyone
Josh
would be
Adams is still there.
Josh Adams.
I do like this one. And I think it was last year. I think Nick brought this up, or an article I read. One of the offensive linemen for the Vikings talking about why he liked playing in the Gary Kubiak system so much is that you do the same block over and over and over and over again. And the whole scheme is set up to give you just the slightest advantage over your opponent. So on top of doing the same thing over and over and over again, they try to get you to where you're pushing some guy on the side instead of going straight up or trying to reach for him or pull like a lot of gap scheme plays go. And the point of this is that makes your offensive line a whole lot better when they get to practice their one move over and over and over. And then what makes it so confusing for defenses is it looks like you're running the same play 30 times a game and you have 25 variations of it. And we've seen, even with old one-leg Garoppolo in San Francisco, Shanahan is showing that there is no league in the United States where coach is more important than the NFL. He just continues to win with guys we've never heard of at quarterback. And when you got one season out of Jimmy Garoppolo, he went to the Super Bowl. So if that all comes together for the Jets, that's exciting. Those fans have suffered enough now. I think it's time to give them like a 7-9 season that they can be proud of.
Yeah, I don't really endorse replacing Frank Gore as a running back anywhere because we just love Frank Gore. No, but if they can, I mean, they have like 1 million picks in the first 3 rounds. So if they can get like a running back in the early seconds who everybody except maybe we always see like at least one running back go in the first round. So like if Travis Etienne is gone or somebody like that, Najee Harris, if they're gone, then they'll still have like their relative pick of the litter in the second round to add to if they drafted a quarterback at number 2 overall, if they sign a wide receiver, if they had other weapons in free agency, but are actually like smart about it and don't, back up the Brinks for a running back in free agency, then they could come away as like one of the victors of the draft. And we could be talking about that for a couple of weeks afterwards.
Nick, wrap us up.
Yeah, this is cool. I thought I was going to have to go with like a plan B here. So this was really hard for me though. So I'm gonna go with the Indianapolis Colts as just a pass catcher generally, but with emphasis on the wide receiver position. With Hilton hopefully gone, Michael Pittman Jr. is going to be stepping up. I mean, Zach Pascal, like he's done some things. He's not that great. Paris Campbell is there, but he's been super injured in the 2 seasons that he's been there. So they need help here. And for whatever reason, they won't play Mo Alley Cox as an every down tight end. But yeah, they need to get some big time pass catchers in there. They need to get them developed. I think Pittman can lead this year, but if they were to bring in another guy who they use high draft capital on, I think that they could have a really awesome receiving core for, at least the duration of their rookie contracts. But you could be looking at like an 8 to 9 year span where they have a sick 1-2 punch at the position.
Yeah, I actually had the Colts as one of my like backups in case someone snagged one of my Jets running back. But I'm expecting the 2021 Colts offense to basically look like the 2016-17 Eagles with both Wentz and Frank Reich there. And we saw from there, it was, one main receiver. They had Jordan Matthews was in 2016 and Alshon Jeffrey was 2017. But then it was Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz had 100 plus targets in both seasons. Both years he went over 800 yards and had at least 4 touchdowns. Now, I'm not saying that specifically the Colts tight end is going to be that production, but I do think that the Colts, like I could see Michael Pittman maybe as like that big physical receiver if they go out and get someone. But I think you're totally right, Nick, that this offense does need one more weapon, especially in the passing game. And whether or not that's a tight end that they go get, or that's a wide receiver, that there's a lot of potential here, particularly since this team has already, like we saw Jonathan Taylor really blossom in the second half of the season. They already have this phenomenal offensive line. Like there's going to be a lot of space, I think, opening up in terms of play action and having a quarterback who hopefully, I mean, if Carson Wentz can be 2018, 2019 Wentz, which was like, a good serviceable quarterback, a guy who can get the ball across and all over the field.
Yeah, like it. Reich is creative. Wentz needs some weapons. He really has a tendency to hold on to the ball instead of letting it go. I think the Colts have a really good nucleus, and getting a little extra for Wentz sure wouldn't hurt. They're picking kind of in the middle of the draft anyway. So that's kind of a spot where in the first round, you can still get usually a very, very good skill player, or it's like, boy, this guard is awesome. Sorry, Jordan. Guards aren't exciting, even though they're good picks. Yeah, I like that for the Colts. There you go.
The guard thing, I mean, left tackle, right? That's what they need to get shored up. What I really did like about Brandon Thorne, offensive line guru, he was saying like, even if they could use an early first round pick on a left tackle, and then they get to stick him next to Quentin Nelson, which is probably the most comfortable left tackle like rookie position you could find in the NFL. So I think that would be a great option too. But I would just be excited for fantasy purposes if we got a number 1 receiver in there.
Yeah, if they want to protect their investment that they made in Carson Wentz, the 2 of the main things I think they have to do is either shore up that left side of the offensive line to protect Wentz because he needs protecting at all times, or add a potential deep threat, somebody who can make plays down the field. Michael Pittman's like a good X wide receiver, but he's not particularly speedy. He's not taking the top off, and Paris Campbell is pretty fast, but he's more of a slot guy. So if they could add somebody like a good deep threat, maybe if Jalen Waddle falls to them, or like a Rashad Bateman, who's not necessarily a deep threat, but knows how to get open and knows how to pinpoint the ball in the air, then I think that would be beneficial for Carson Wentz. They need to get him. They need to get him comfortable. Let's just say that.
Totally. Excellent. Well, there you go. Some good early draft talk. Nick and I will make sure we are going to hit the tape room so hard. We're going to grind tape. We're going to watch film. We are going to view screenings. We are going to, what's another way to say watch tape? Interpret cinema. All of these things. so that we're fully prepared with this rookie class as we keep talking draft, as we keep ramping up to the NFL draft. So don't miss out, and make sure you subscribe to the Fake Teams podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher. That's how you'll not only get us, but also our fantasy baseball and basketball shows. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at RB1 Podcast. Follow myself at Pete M. Rogers. Follow Clark at NFL Clark, Jordan at Jordan_Smith27, and Nicholas at Ginger_Nick without a K. We will be back at you next week. Until then, peace.